Christie later on. I'm looking forward to that spot. Now, he's bounced around all day. Eddie Erickson decided late would be better, and that was before he knew that he was going to go on every show known to man, including Vox and New Rochelle. But I'm having fun. I would do the gambling thing with the former governor of New Jersey, and he was the guy that got this done. So, case closed. We'll get to the byproduct of it and what he feels and get his thoughts. That a little later on. All right, let's do Robinson Cano for a sec. A lot of different ramifications with this. This came down about 5 minutes to 2 today in the East. Cano of the Mariners suspended PED use, 80 days, 80 games, out of there now for Seattle. He broke his hand a couple days ago in Detroit, where, he was going to go see a specialist today in Philadelphia, and I guess he got news that he was going to be out 8 weeks, and then maybe he said, you know what, I heard he was appealing this, because this has been going on for a while. He's been appealing it because he took a masking agent, so he was going to appeal the diuretic that he was nailed for, and I guess he says, I'm going to be out 8 weeks, just take the suspension now. Remember, it's bad the way they do it, but if you are on the DL, that counts as part of the 80 games. So I hate that. That's a loophole that needs to be closed. Baseball looks bad. Here's a guy, because this is what happened. This guy essentially decided, Cano, well, you know what? I'm going to be out 8 weeks, 5 games a week. I'm going to miss 40 games, so I might as well just take the extra 40 and move on. And, he used the DL and an injury to drop his appeal, and that makes it look bad. As the idea for baseball to clean up PED use and nail the cheats, or is the idea for the guy who gets nailed to figure out a way that he can combine it with rest and injury and all those kinds of things? What is it? If we're here to clean up the sport, 80 games should be 80 games, and that's not the way it is, because these players use the DL and their injuries to sort of, figure out when they want to take their suspension, when they don't, which bothers you. And it happens not just with PED use, it also happens with, suspensions based on, hitting at players and charging them out and all those kinds of things. They use injury as a way to use that as their suspension, which drives you crazy. Now, so from that perspective, that bothers me that he can use the DL. But there are some other ramifications. Number two, remember the Mariners now, they will not have him in the postseason. Now, the Mariners, that's the one thing they did add a few years ago, where if you get suspended in the regular season, you cannot play in the postseason. Seattle currently right now is 6 games over 500. They will be in a postseason race for something. Now, obviously, that something most likely is going to be the second wild card, because the Yankees and Boston are both going to be in. They're not in the American League Central, so let's give that to the Indians, and you got to figure Houston. So that means Seattle, at best, what they're most likely going to be fighting for is the one spot against whomever. You want to say Angels most likely? I'll buy that. That's what Seattle's going to be fighting for, and if they are so fortunate that they do make the playoffs, Cano cannot play in the playoffs. So that is the one thing, loophole, that they did close at the commissioner's office, is that if you do get suspended during a regular year for PED use, you cannot play in that year's postseason. So the Mariners, who have not been in the postseason since 2001, which is, a very long drought. There's very few teams that can say that in baseball. I mean, I'm not sure if every team's been in the playoffs since 2001. I have to go back and look. I think they probably have played a postseason game since 2001. They might have the longest drought. San Diego's played in the playoffs since 2001. You'd consider them. Cincinnati has played in the playoffs since 2001. So have the Pirates. So have the Brewers. Miami won a championship in 2003, so they're in. Philadelphia won in 2008. They're in. Atlanta won a million times. They're in. The Mets obviously got to a World Series. So they might have the longest drought in the postseason. And then if they do make the postseason this year, and they got a chance to, they got a pretty good offense. They've done a pretty good job of hanging around. They've had a lot of road games. They have played 24 road games, and they always have a hard schedule because of where they're located. Seattle has done a pretty good job, and the Mariners do have the longest drought. Eddie just looked it up. So Marlins are second, Mariners are first. So they will not be able to play that. That's one thing you do like. That's the other ramification. The last ramification is Cano as far as the Hall of Fame is concerned. Now, he's probably not thinking about this right now, But Cano was well on his way to the Hall of Fame before this occurred. If you look at Cano going into this season, or really right as of right now, Cano's lifetime batting average right now is 304. He's got 305 career home runs, 1,206 RBIs, and he's got 1,168 runs scored, and he's 35 years of age. So he's got a couple of pretty good years left in him to add up to that to those statistics. He's also got an on-base percentage, if you're wrapped up in the sabermetric nonsense, of 354. He has not been the same player in Seattle as he was with the Yankees. I mean, his Yankee years are mind-boggling. 27, 107, 314, 33, 94, 313, 28, 118, 302, 29, 109, 319, 25, 85, 320, with 204, 200, 188, 196, 190 in hit departments. He went to Seattle beginning of the 2014 season, and although he's been a good Mariner, he hasn't been a great Mariner. 14 homers, 82 RBIs, 314, 187 hits. That was in his first year. In 2015, 21, 79, 287. In 2016, he had a great year, 39, 103, 298 with 195 hits. And then last year, 23, 97, 280. Not been quite as good. Ballpark different. Not quite as good. Tougher travel. But he plays every day. He always plays. Give him that. 150, 161, 156, 157, and 160, 161. He plays every day. And he's a little lackadaisical as far as the intricacies of the game, running out ground balls. You know, he's a little nonchalant defensively, but he's a hell of a second baseman. I mean, listen, he was going to the Hall of Fame. And that ramification now is something we're going to have to discuss. He was going to the Hall of Fame, and I don't think now he's going to go. Now, remember, Bonds and Clemens are not in the Hall of Fame yet, and they did not break or fail a drug test. Most of the people, the writers who vote for Bonds or Clemens, they give you the two reasons of why. Well, there's three reasons of why they vote for him. One, he was a Hall of Famer. They were Hall of Famers before PED use, and that is accurate. Because Clemens and Bonds did not do PEDs in the early 90s, and they were great. That's number one. Number two, they didn't break any baseball law at the time. There was no law against steroids or rule. It was a life rule, but it wasn't a baseball rule. And then number three, they never failed a drug test. Those are the reasons they give you. Well, Cano, it's different. Because who knows how long he's been doing steroids, and maybe, so you can't say that he was a pre-Hall of Famer prior to steroids, and, you know, now you can find a line where he's post-steroid player. Where is that line? You have no proof of that. Bonds and Clemens, you had proof. Look at their numbers and their production. Clemens has been, Cano's been pretty consistent his whole career. So I don't know where there is proof where before this period he didn't do steroids, and after he did, where is there proof of that? So that hurts him. Because if you really want to be a cynic about it, you can go through his whole career, and he played with A-Rod, which is another problem. You can go through his whole career, and you can say, look at this. And Cano and A-Rod were tight. Look at this. He did steroids. He must have done steroids here. So this also mars the Yankees to a degree. And in 2009 with the Yankees, you don't think he hit 25 homers, 85 RBIs, played in every game, 204 hits, 320 batting average, and a 352 on base. So I think that he will not get into the Hall of Fame now. I think he will not be voted on. He failed a test. Now, I'm not sure if he right now is losing sleep over that. I don't know where Cano looks at it from a historical perspective. I don't know where he is. He's near the end of his career. He's got a lot of years left on that contract. I believe I think he signed an 8-year deal, so he's got 3 years left. And he's 35 now. It may have been 10 years, but I think it was 8 years. May have been 10. $240 million. It was either 10 or 8. But, you know, right now, he's near the end of his career, but I don't know how he feels right now regarding his whole thing with, where he's going to be, if he's going to be in Cooperstown or not. But it's a big blow to Seattle. They're going to miss him in that lineup. It's going to be it's going to take a little something out of Seattle. They were playing very good offense. They were a good offensive team. They don't have unbelievable 5 years left in his contract, so he did have a 10-year deal. He didn't, they have a good Cruz, him, Seager. They got a good offensive team, and now he's a big part of that, and he's out. So it's a big hit for the Mariners. And as far as the steroid policy is concerned, you can go two ways with that argument. The one way is that because Cano is using masking agents, that he can't be the only one, and there's a lot of guys getting away with this and still cheating. So the cheaters are ahead of the law as far as getting away with it. You can look at it that way, and that that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a million players out there still doing steroids. If you nailed Robinson Cano, if you want to take that stance, you can, or you go with the other stance that here's a big star getting nailed for steroids, where they nailed Cano, so that's going to send a good lesson, and that tells you that the steroid policy is still working properly. And I think it does makes a complete mockery of Manfred in one way, and I love Rob, but it's fair. Manfred, a couple years ago, went on record as saying, I think Piazza, Bonds, all these guys should be in the Hall of Fame. Well, hold on now. They did PEDs, Rob, and you want them in the Hall of Fame, yet a guy who's a Hall of Fame player today just failed a PED test, and you suspended him 80 games. So let me get this straight. If Piazza and Bonds and Clemens, I'm all for. I know Piazza never suspended, but still, we all know. And Bagwell and Biggio. Maybe not Biggio. I'll take that back. But Bagwell. And they're in the Hall of Fame. And you don't seem to have a problem with that. Yet here's Cano, who now cheats. And he gets, and you think the PEDs are so bad, you give him 80 games, half a season. So it's a little hypocritical out of baseball.